You're standing in downtown Saigon in late 1968, duffel bag on your shoulder, sweat sticking your shirt to your back. You've been in country for less than a week. Ahead of you, rising out of the traffic in neon, is a 13-story tower on Tran Hung Dao Boulevard. The guys call it the President Hotel, or just that haunted GI apartment. Officially, it's 727 Tran Hung Dao. Built in 1960, 13 floors, more than 500 rooms, rented out to U.S. personnel rotating through the city. From the street, it looks like any other high-rise. But nobody will take the elevator all the way up. Your sergeant mutters that construction workers fell like flies when they started pouring the 13th floor, that a desperate owner brought in a shaman, sacrificed 4 bodies, and buried them in the corners of the building to cage whatever was killing his men. Locals say you can still hear boots marching at 2 a.m. and see a pale American GI holding hands with a Vietnamese girl drifting down the corridor. Tonight there are spare bunks on the 12th and 13th floors. And suddenly, every man in your group has a reason, any reason, to sleep somewhere else. Most people imagine the Vietnam War as firefights, helicopters, and jungle ambushes. What they don't realize is that for many Americans, Vietnam itself felt haunted, not just by what they did, but by where they had to go. You were dropped into a country where ancestor worship and ghost beliefs go back centuries, where people talk about wandering souls, spirits doomed to roam because they died far from home or without proper burial. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. When you mix those beliefs with night patrols, collapsed villages, jungle tunnels, and ruined French-era buildings, there were places where even hardened soldiers, from the 25th Infantry Division to the 1st Infantry Division and 101st Airborne, quietly refused to go. Not because a colonel ordered them away, but because something in them said, no, not there. Your tour is defined as much by those places you won't enter as by the ones you do. You finally ride the elevator up, pressed shoulder to shoulder with other GIs, feeling it shudder past the 10th, 11th, 12th floors. When the doors slide open, the hallway is too quiet. By the late 1960s, 727 Tran Hung Dao, 13 stories, 6 blocks, over 530 apartments, was packed with Americans. Enlisted men on rest breaks, civilian contractors, occasional officers. It had a bar on the upper floors, live music, and balconies that looked out over Cho Lawn. On paper, it was prime real estate. But the legends start long before you arrive. During construction, workers supposedly kept dying in bizarre accidents once they hit that cursed 13th floor. The owner, businessman Nguyen Tan Doi, allegedly panicked, called in a spiritual specialist, and had 4 corpses buried at the building's corners to anchor the restless dead. None of that appears in any army report, but it circulates in Saigon newspapers and street gossip, and GIs pick it up fast. Later, residents would talk about knocking on doors with nobody there, footsteps in empty stairwells, and the sound of a military parade marching through the building at night. One woman recalled seeing a young American and his Vietnamese girlfriend still walking the halls years after the last U.S. units left. For you, the effect is simpler and more immediate. Guys who will charge a tree lean outside Siu Chi will quietly refuse a top-floor bunk. Men trade rooms to get off the 12th floor. Claim the air conditioner is busted or the plumbing's bad. Anything to avoid sleeping beneath a slab of concrete every Vietnamese porter swears is cursed. What most people don't realize is that fear doesn't care if the story is literally true. When enough people repeat that a place is wrong, your body believes it. You find yourself taking the stairs instead of the elevator, avoiding the end of the corridor where a door has been nailed shut for years. After those nights in Saigon, you learn something important. If a whole building can feel haunted, what will it be like underground? Weeks later, you're out of Saigon and attached to the 25th Infantry Division near Siu Chi, northwest of the city. Your world shrinks to rice paddies, tree lines, and the red dirt of 3 Corps. Then the tunnels. By 1966 to 1967, U.S. and Australian units had uncovered vast tunnel networks, storage rooms, hospitals, command posts, running for tens of kilometers under areas like Siu Chi and Benjum. When Operation Crimp went in early 1966, engineers and infantry began sending volunteers, the dreaded tunnel rats, down into holes barely wider than their shoulders. The tunnel rat later remembered being lowered into a shaft with a pistol and flashlight, the fear sharper than anything he'd felt before or since. In some sectors, scout dogs were used first, until so many dogs were maimed or killed in booby-trapped tunnels that their handlers refused to send them down anymore. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. It wasn't just mines and tripwires that kept men topside. Over time, some tunnel complexes built a reputation, places where men felt watched, where their lights seemed to dim, where they swore they heard whispering in English and Vietnamese in tunnels long abandoned. One widely told veteran ghost story describes a tunnel team working west of Da Nang, crawling so deep they reached a hidden cave temple. There, in the beam of a flashlight, they saw grotesque statues and something hanging from the ceiling that looked too human to be a carving. The survivor said he refused to ever go back into that tunnel system, and no one in his unit volunteered either. Whether that particular story is embellished or not, the record is clear on one point. Men told their officers flatly, "I won't go back down there." In a debrief from a contact near LZ Mile High in 1968, one soldier recalled telling his battalion commander he would not re-enter a bunker complex after barely escaping an ambush inside it. Psychologically, those tunnels are perfect haunted houses, pitch black, full of the dead, built explicitly to kill you at arm's length. Commanders could order a lot of things in Vietnam. Forcing a man into a hole where his buddies had vanished sometimes simply wasn't worth the mutiny. Once you've learned to fear the earth beneath your boots, the next haunted places rise up out of the jungle itself. By mid-tour, you're operating closer to the border, in thick triple canopy jungle, where maps mean less and Montagnard scouts mean everything. The air is heavy, visibility down to a few meters, and at night the jungle sounds like it's breathing. Frogs, insects, distant artillery, the occasional burst of AK fire that never quite resolves into a firefight. American advisors and Marine patrols learned quickly that their local guides avoided certain patches of forest, dark stands of trees they called home to Mahan Vong Bong Ma, spirits of the unburied dead. Some said even reanimated corpses that waited in the branches. One Marine later recalled that villagers flat out refused to go into these groves, even in daylight. Here's the detail that changes how you see the war. In a conflict defined by body counts and kill zones, patrol routes still bent around folklore. When the people who know every hill and stream won't cross a particular ravine, you listen. Maps get redrawn in your head. This ridge is safe enough for a patrol base. That gully is fine for a night ambush site, but that stand of trees. No. You might joke about it in the daylight, but when the sun goes down and you're assigning LP/OPs, nobody volunteers for the listening post closest to the Ghost Grove. You remember Operation Apache Snow in 1969, when the 101st Airborne Division fought on Hill 937, Hamburger Hill, and how survivors later described the mountain as alive with the dead. You don't need a special name for your patch of jungle to know it feels the same. The tactical effect is subtle but real. Platoons camp a few hundred meters farther back. Patrols skirt certain draws instead of cutting straight through. Fields of fire get worse, but morale stays just barely high enough. After months of this, you realize the worst haunted places aren't famous at all. They're unnamed pieces of forest everybody in your unit quietly learns to avoid. And then there are places that feel haunted not by folklore, but by what actually happened there. By early 1968, the war explodes into cities and bases across South Vietnam during the Tet Offensive. You hear about the 26th Marines holding the combat base at Khe Sanh, 6,000 men under siege by perhaps 15,000 to 30,000 North Vietnamese troops, shelled day and night for weeks. Farther east, in Hue, Marines and ARVN units fight house to house for 24 days to retake the citadel, leaving thousands of soldiers and civilians dead. One documentary later described Hue as a place where you ate your rations with death all around you, streets and moats clogged with bodies. But the haunted places that shape your own tour are smaller. In one oral history, an infantryman who survived Tet explained how, after a bunker he'd been in was hit and 23 men died, he simply refused ever to sleep in a bunker again. "I'd find a ditch," he said. "Anything. I would not go back in a bunker." You hear the same tone from other veterans' accounts. A soldier at a fire support base telling his battalion commander he would not re-enter a particular bunker complex after barely making it out. Marines at besieged outposts like Lang Vei, watching bunkers turn into tombs by tank fire and flamethrowers, then doing everything they could to avoid those positions once the shooting stopped. Psychologically, those structures are no longer defensive positions. They're graves with roofs. The air smells like burnt sandbags and old explosives, but your brain fills in what used to be there. Friends, squad leaders, the radio operator whose voice you can still hear under incoming. Tactically, refusing a bunker is irrational. It's cover against shrapnel and small arms fire. But after Tet, After mass attacks and cave-in nightmares, some men chose open ground and risk of shrapnel over being buried alive again. And that's the final brutal truth about haunted places in Vietnam. They didn't need ghosts. The memories were enough. By the time your tour ends, you've learned to read a different kind of map. A Saigon high-rise where GIs whisper about sacrifices under the foundation. Tunnel complexes near Siu Chi where even tunnel rats and dog handlers say, "I'm not going back down there." Jungle groves your Montagnard guides won't cross after dark because the dead have claimed them. Bunkers and firebases where the survivors of Tet and Khe Sanh choose ditches and open ground rather than lie again where dozens died in seconds. What most people don't realize is that for Americans in Vietnam, haunted wasn't just a campfire word. It was a way of describing places where fear, belief, and memory piled up so heavily that rank, training, and even orders sometimes bent around them. You came to Vietnam with a map full of named operations, Crimp, Tet, Apache Snow, and numbered hills. You leave with another map in your head, a tower room you never slept in, a tunnel you never entered, a stand of trees you never patrolled, a bunker door you never again walked through. Long after the war ends, those are the places you still avoid. Because some doors, once you've seen what's behind them, you never open again.